First of all, I'd like to welcome you to Empire Fighting Chance and to say that we're really pleased to host this town event. We're proud to be members of the coalition, so it's great to be able to welcome you all today. I don't know how much anybody knows about us, so I'll give you a brief overview. We use sort of non-contact boxing, so effectively boxing training, underpinned by intensive personal development to work with some of the most vulnerable young people in the UK. We currently work across Bristol and in, I think it's 16 areas of South Wales. We've also got partners in Devon, Cornwall, Dorset and North Wales that are delivering our programs. Just before Christmas, we signed an agreement with England Boxing. So we're going to be England Boxing's only official partner, and we're currently working with them across the UK. We've got a cohort of 10 clubs initially from the northwest and the northeast all the way down to the south coast. We're going to train and support them for the next 12 months to deliver a couple of our programs. What we do in reality is we run 3 programs. One we call Training with Champions, which is underpinned by psychology and a psychologist. One, we do boxing therapy, so we deliver genuine therapy using a qualified therapist, but we use physical activity as the hook. And then the final stage for us is we deliver a career service. So again, you get to a certain age, we need young people to get a job. I know that what we do works. So in a previous job, and it sounds like a grubby confession, I was an analyst. So I like data. I like data and I like stats. I am sorry, but I do. So I know that what we do works. I see that young people that come to us, their mental health improves. I see that we get young people out of gangs. I see that we reduce knife crime. I see that we reduce violence. I see that we increase school attendance. I see those things. But one of the reasons why we do that is because of the quality of our staff. Our results are so good because our staff are so great. They dedicate so much time to young people, the vision, the culture, everybody believes in what we do. We couldn't have achieved anything, I don't believe, without the staff that we've got and their dedication to what we do. So every time I walk around this gym or I talk to anybody, I'm kind of proud of what we've achieved. I'm proud of what they do, and I'm proud to welcome you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ben Hilton. I'm a board member for the Coalition and also the Chief Exec of the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, and welcome to everybody online as well. So today, Town Hall, the first one of 2022, is looking at how do we recruit, retain and develop a talented and diverse workforce. And these town halls are really valuable events where coalition organisations can have their say on important issues and also hopefully combine for some collective action. NCVO, their research reported that 45,000 organisations are using sport and physical activity in some way. We know that, and with the coalition membership, that the scope of the workforce is far wider than probably we all think. So for those that are delivering on the front line, for fundraisers, finance, insights, everybody else that works within the sport development sector, we don't understand, I believe, the size and scale and the value and the needs of the workforce. So hopefully today is going to be a chance where we can explore that further. I know from a trust perspective, there isn't a clear or consistent way that people join the charity. I think motivations and values are consistent, or they are more aligned, but how do we create that clear pathway or that development pathway for those within the sector? I also think for sport for development, there is that split between youth and sport. So it's really great that we've got Lee Williams from Young Bristol here and Ben Breeze from Bristol Sport, looking at it from 2 different angles, but for a common purpose. We've also got Sport England, Simspa, UK Coaching in the room, and also UK Youth and National Youth Agency online as well. So hopefully we can get some good perspectives and insight from that side of things as well. And just for today, just for clarity, it is looking at the frontline workers today. So the scope is wide within the sport for development sector, but for today's conversation, just to add some focus, it is looking at those that are on the front line and delivering to the beneficiaries. So just as a bit of concept setting, that is it from myself. I'm just going to hand over to Steve Mitchell from many organisations and Sarah Morterboys from UK Coaching.
Thanks, Ben. I think Sarah's up first, so that's why I just gave you the quizzical look. Hi, everybody, and good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sarah Mortiboys, and I'm from UK Coaching. And UK Coaching are a learning and development agency that are here to support the workforce and to help galvanise and start the conversation around what is it actually that our sector needs to be the best that it can be. And, you know, as Ben said, we're talking about frontline workforce today, but really getting under the skin of the breadth and depth of that conversation. So I'm really pleased to be here and really excited to hear both conversations in the room, but also conversations with colleagues online.
Morning, everybody. As Sarah just alluded to, so yeah, I'm Steve Mitchell. Really delighted to be here today, having been involved at the very beginning, I guess, of the coalition many years ago, but also as a proud trustee of the Coach Corps Foundation. I'm doing some work for Simpsborough and Sport England at the moment, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. But ultimately, yeah, really excited to get people's views and opinions today on people and workforce, because guess what? They drive organisations. And I think for a long time in the sector, we haven't had enough focus on that. So it's great to be able to bring people together and, as I said, contribute from people online to really elevate this conversation. Mort?
Yeah. So we've got a nice little slide up there from UK Coaching, and this is really just to kind of reinforce what I've just said. And this today for us is really about meeting people where they're at. So getting an understanding around that big piece of insight. So what are the challenges that we face? What is the aspiration of the workforce for the future? And what do we actually need to do together in a collaborative way to not only build really solid learning and development opportunities, but ensure that we're collectively able to retain and give brilliant opportunities to progress and deepen experience within the workforce that ultimately enables us to succession plan so that we're able to build a really, really cohesive offer that supports the beneficiaries that colleagues work with. And kind of a note on workforce for us, really, this is about now, but it's also about the future. So how do we build a really progressive pathway for the young people? And we're talking, you know, we're in a venue today which works with amazing young people to help them build brilliant lives for themselves. So how do we really help and support them to be the best that they can be in terms of future workforce? And it is really for us about tackling inequalities, and that speaks very strongly, and colleagues from Sport England are in the room, speaks very strongly to our sector-wide strategy around uniting the movement and what that looks and feels like for us going forward. And sport for development is broad. We know that, you know, we know that that is about youth agencies. We know that that's about criminal justice. James is in the room, James Matchden from the Alliance. We know that that's about education, community cohesion and employability, but also that responsibility that we have to contribute to net zero. So that slide, hopefully, although it's very busy, sorry about that, I would just focus on the bits in bold, to be honest. And this is really just a little bit about us as an organisation, and I'm not going to talk through that in particular detail, but from our perspective, we're here, and the big phrase that I use, and I have used kind of throughout both my work in UK Coaching, but also working alongside the coalition, is that this is about servant leadership. It's about really understanding and building the understanding and depth of insight into what you need as a sector to, and therefore our role really is just to guide and support and help you become the best that you can be. It's about that servant leadership piece, and you can kind of see that in that slide. And the change that we want to create. So what will be different theoretically? And this is going to change over time, right? Dependent on what that insight piece is. But we're about the galvanization and supporting the workforce to be the best that it can be. The role of the sport for development coach, and we know that it's coach, leader, mentor, a whole broad range of colleagues that work in that space, that's really advocated on that local, regional and national platform, that we have robust research and insight. So we understand, but we also apply that insight to be that catalyst for positive social change and impact. And the collaboration is absolutely at the heart. I really strongly believe in that. Collaboration is really tricky. It's really hard. And we're all like having a little smile, Ben, aren't you? Having a little smile in the room. It is tricky, but actually it is, with experience, the best possible direction to enable the best possible outcomes for those that we exist for. And I think I now hand over to you.
Thanks, Double Act. So I was asked to come today really to give a bit of perspective, and talking to Emma and Sarah in the week. I've been involved over the last 20 years, I guess, in lots of people and workforce related projects in sport and physical activity. But at the moment, I guess, when I'm out and about talking to organisations, I'm talking about reading the tea leaves. And the tea leaves for me are kind of articulated on this slide, because never has it been more important for organisations in the sector and within the coalition membership to know their people, to understand their people, and to have a brave and ambitious approach to what those people look like, where they come from, and the impact that they're going to have. So I guess for me, if you look back over the last 10 years, some things have happened that kind of mean that we're here today, that we're even having this conversation. And some of those are policy documents, some of those are things that have happened in mainstream media and in some of the big sports. And I guess as you move through, there have been a series of policies, strategies, interventions that mean that we're here now to have this really good conversation. The last couple of years, I guess that's really been accelerated through Sport England's commitment in uniting the movement, which I think for the first time really places people and workforce at its core. There is some work that I've been involved with workforce governance, which is ultimately looking at trying to reduce risk that workforce do things wrong and cause harm to participants, customers, players and athletes. And that talks about 4 or 5 main recommendations, that we need to understand what harm means, because harm isn't just maybe what's happening in gymnastics or in football. Harm has all sorts of manifestations, but we need to redefine and redetermine what harm means in sport and physical activity. It's not just safeguarding, it's a range of different things. We also are a sector that is really, really good at working in silos, but that's not good enough anymore. So actually, if something has happened in a boxing gym in Bristol and Martin removes a coach because of malpractice, it's no longer good enough for Martin to think, I've done my job, I've removed him from working here. Because that bad person may pop up down the road and work in the badminton club, but that's not good enough anymore. We can't afford to just allow these bad things to happen and bad people to cause harm and not tell other people about it. We can't say, well, our sport's clean. We can't have a governing body saying, well, it's okay, we've got no safeguarding cases going on. You definitely have, okay? But it's no longer good enough and we need to call that out. The insight piece that Sarah's talked about, and one of the reasons why we're here today, I'm not sure we all know who this workforce is that we're talking about. So we need to talk about who it is and we need to define who it is. And if we know who's making sport and physical activity happen and we know how to communicate with them, we can make them better, we can lift them up, we can make sure they're happy, we can hopefully build them into progression, leadership, etc. But at the moment, we don't know enough about it. So the role of SIMSPA and UK coaching becomes even more important in supporting organisations to know their workforce. There is a famous story of somebody, anybody, nobody and everybody that many of you will have come across. But ultimately, when things are happening and we're not calling it out, whose responsibility is it? Whose responsibility is it to define what the workforce of the future looks like? Whose responsibility is it to make sure our workforce is societally reflective and diverse? We've all got responsibility, but we're now having those conversations that haven't happened, in my opinion, for the last 20 years or so. Specifically right now, I'm just finishing a piece of work for Sport England around the coaching plan. And there are 4 headlines, I guess, that we have heard. So for the last 4 or 5 months, we've been out and about listening to organisations that employ and deploy coaches. These are the 4 things. At the moment, we're not good enough at challenging exclusionary practice that happens in coaching domains. The learning and development offer for 15 to 20 years has predominantly been based around, do you level 1, do you level 2, do you level 3? That's not good enough anymore. So it's not just about not having qualifications, but it's about having a really progressive learning framework, about having CPD opportunities to allow people to explore the breadth of their coaching practice, not just go level 1, level 2, level 3. We have to demand more. As organisations, whether it's Empire Fighting Chance or Dame Kelly Holmes or Coach Corps, we've got to demand more from the workers that work for us or volunteer for us. As parents and guardians, as carers, we've got to demand more of the workforce that we put our children into a sports club or a after-school environment to say, like, are you fit for purpose? Are you trusted? Is it safe that I'm leaving my children with you? And we also need to understand and move the dialogue away from coaches as inputs. If we have 400 coaches, we deliver this number of sessions, which gets to this number of people. That's a really outdated way of thinking about it. So actually, the people in particular that work in the coalition space are far more than just coaches. They're not just delivering a session and going home. So we need to understand and start talking about coaches no longer as an input, but the rich value of what these people do day in, day out. My last little note about the tea leaves is, for those of you that haven't or have missed it or haven't managed to pick it up yet, the government have responded to the Lord's report on the state of sport and physical activity. There's lots of stuff in there that chimes with some of this. There's lots of challenge for governing bodies and active partnerships and organisations like yourselves. There is one standout element for me that we need to be starting to consider. It says very clearly, we need to test the coaching register. Now, most of you in the room will have heard this debate for the last 20 years. Some sports have tried it, some active partnerships have tried it, but actually link the pieces of the jigsaw together. If we at least had a progressive database of who's making sport and physical activity happen, we can know that they're safe, fit for purpose, and hopefully it will help all sorts of different agendas around professionalisation, but also let young people know how to get in and how to move through. So some of these things are happening in the background and some of them are coming, but I guess the purpose of that 5 minutes was literally just to say, this is what I think is going on around us. That's enough from me, but what we're now going to do, hopefully through the power of technology, is hear from you guys, both in the room and online. So if the slide flicks on, you can all get your devices out. Phones, laptops, and this should be absolutely fine. No, it will be fine online. So online, you can go to any web browser of your choosing, and you can go to pollev.com/sportingpeople366. And hopefully, when you get there, you will find a screen that looks a little, well, you'll be able to ask to put your name in, but you should end up with what looks like a live polling opportunity that on my screen looks like that, but you might get to put your name in first. Someone give me a nod or a thumbs up that they seem to have got to the right place. Kelly's in the right place, that's good. See all those thumbs online. So pollev.com/sportingpeople366. You there, Ben? Brilliant. Has everybody got there? No, that's fine, no problem. Claire, you there? You got it? Nearly. Laybourne, you in? So an easy opener. There's your first question. And if you put South Africa, wow. Allez bleu seems to be the outcome. Cool. So just that was really to make sure that the technology is now working. If you flick on, I guess the purpose of today is to hear your views. And as Ben articulated at the very beginning, specifically around recruitment, retention, progression, and yeah, the people that work for you. So our first question, and you're allowed to make 2 votes here, is that in relation to recruitment, what is your biggest recruitment challenge in 2022? So think specifically about your organization or an organization that you might be a director or a trustee of, and tell us what you think. I'll keep filling because actually there is some quite interesting data out there at the moment that SIMSPA have been producing about the kind of state of the workforce and organizations that are struggling to recruit more generally, because there's just not people wanting to necessarily come and work in mainstream leisure operational type roles. So yeah, you can cast your vote twice. So the leading one at the moment is applications lacking prerequisite skills and experiences. Anyone would think that we haven't got the curriculum quite right. There is no opportunity to say BTECs in sport on there, but there you go. Okay, so the top 3 answers. So lack of applications, 20%, applications lacking requisite skills and experiences. So I say that tongue in cheek, but I guess if we haven't got a fit for purpose education curriculum in school, college, and university, we can't expect people to arrive with the right skills and knowledge to come and do the job. So we know there is a big piece of work to do to address that. And we know that Sport England have challenged SIMSPA, UK Coaching and others to have that progressive conversation. But we also need to be clear that we know what those skills and experiences need to be. And we need to articulate that as a coalition and as a sector and have a big grown-up conversation with the likes of higher education and further education to say, it isn't good enough just delivering 35,000 BTECs a year. This is the skills and experiences we need. Why can't you deliver a curriculum that has that embedded within it? So we've got young people arriving at your door ready to go rather than having to rewire them. And I guess that's where the likes of Coach Core and others do that work to try and then take young people and give them the right skills and experiences. But at the moment, yeah, your message is it's not good enough. If there is something else in the chat that's worth picking up, Kelly, then please holler. If there is something else in the room that anybody would like to say we've missed, shout.
One of the issues we have around I hear what you're saying about training young people, educating them, getting them ready. I understand that. I understand the requirements about training young people through the academic process. A lot of the volunteers we have are older volunteers, and therefore that's why to us they come not with the required skills and experiences, as opposed to the academic achievement of those young people doing that. So that becomes an issue that we have to invest in and work with. And in fairness, they tend to be the more regular kind of like, yeah, I'm here every week. I don't care if it's raining, snowing, I'm here. Whereas sadly, some of the young people are a bit like me, fair weathered people, you know, don't like getting wet and cold and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but they might have the academic achievement. So to me, it's about the balance between it. I totally get the academic.
Super, thanks, Lee. Gary, go.
I think something else certainly that we see on a recruitment of apprentices front, but also from peers in the room, I know has also been a challenge is around that diversity piece. So actually the challenge is I think are clear that we want different voices, different people of different experiences and different backgrounds in our organizations, but they're either not coming through standard recruitment drives or we're not looking in the right places to actually attract that talent. So I think that for me is a big something else.
Thanks, Gary. Is there one online, Emma?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple actually coming through online. The first one's from Vince saying being able to offer a living wage due to lack of funding or reliance on volunteers. And I think Tracy's also got one, but I haven't got that one yet. Someone.
Is it okay if I come in there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, my point is, it comes under the something else as well, is that I represent people with intellectual impairment in sport, and the wider disability and inclusive agenda is one that needs to filter through right the way through from the academic through to coaching, education, and then eventually stepping into this sector. The fact that it still remains that we're trying to have a really inclusive world and a really inclusive community. We need to continue to change that narrative, and sport helps us do that. But what I mean in this is that it needs to be very real. There are a lot of targets set about inclusivity, but unless we change the approach of our young people coming into the sector to see coaching and working with disabled people generally, and then within that people with intellectual impairment, then we're never going to have a big group of individuals from which we can recruit coaches and the talent that we need in that workforce. One of the big things, and I'll stop on this, is that in terms of coach education, still not having the mandatory or the norm of coaching disabled people within everything that's done in coaching. So I think we need to look at the whole picture where disabled people are concerned, that it's part of the norm right from the very, very beginning through to their professional development.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tracy. You caught us all by surprise because you arrived from the ether. You certainly caught me by surprise. So Tracy, thank you. Emma, is there one more and then we'll just move on?
We've got one from Hayden. If he wants to come in through his own voice, that would be great. Or if not, I can ask it for him.
Yeah, sure. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I suppose what I'm seeing in terms of the research I'm doing to the sport for development sector is that a lot of the vacancies that are offered just aren't attractive enough. That actually, there's not enough security within those opportunities to really foresee them. And we're seeing a lot of very talented, very skilled, very experienced people leaving the sector, to go and work in the gig economy, because there's actually more security in that than there is within sport for development. So I think in terms of how we make those applications more attractive, is probably one of the biggest challenges.
Super, thank you very much. Cool, right, we'll move on. So that's the piece around recruitment. So if you go back to your devices, you should now have another question. This one around retention this time. So same theme, what do you see as your biggest challenges around staff retention? So is it around progression routes? Is it around being able to have enough money to keep enough quality people? Back to Hayden's point he's just made. Is it about those learning and development opportunities? Are they fit for purpose? Is it about workplace culture? Huge for Sport for Development Coalition members, I'm sure, to make sure that the culture is one that suits its customers, but also is a place that values its volunteers and its paid workforce. So the top answer at the moment is balancing revenues and impact with ambition and talent, progression routes, and learning and development opportunities. I think back to a couple of the points that link to what you've just said a minute ago. I think, again, for me, and this work is by nowhere near complete, but the work that has gone on to rewrite professional standards, define what the jobs are, to be able to then articulate that in a meaningful careers presentation, map, etc. It's a really confusing sector we work in. I guess most of you are perhaps in the room by chance rather than by design. You didn't set out to get to where you've got to. So actually, we all need to work harder and smarter to say, these are the jobs, and this is how you move from A to B and B to C, and actually those opportunities are available for you. So again, we'll start in the room, but online, put some stuff in the chat and put your hand up. Does anybody want to either give me something else or pick up on what they've talked about? James.
Thanks, Mitch. So from the Alliance perspective, we work with lots of different delivery partners around the country. And one of the big things we're seeing around coaching and mentoring is the fact it's sessional. And people are paid for the delivery and they're not paid for the extra support. They're not paid for their own personal development. So this often is a part-time work alongside a different job. So that skill set isn't supported and developed enough, possibly because, is it valued? I think it is. Can they afford it? Do they put bids in? Is there enough money to go on top of the coaching hours to support the coach or mentors? So for us, that's a huge issue. And what's happening is that the coaches or mentors are burning out and they're leaving the sector and we're losing really, really good people. So for me, that's a big concern.
Thanks, James. Anyone else in the room want to go at that? Lee, do you want to go? Super. Anyone online, Atco?
Well, we've got a few coming through online, but we're going to take them a bit later because obviously the purpose of the breakouts in a minute is to bring all that together. So keep them going online. That's brilliant. And we'll make sure that they come into the collective action later on.
No problem. Any other comments from anyone in the room? Super. So last polling question. So we've talked about the first two bits. So the last one, and again, duty to, duty of, entirely up to you. James has just spoken about it there. Okay. What are your biggest challenges around nurturing and caring for your people, paid and voluntary? So is it about investment? Is there enough time and money to do that work? Is it around what does it look like? Where do you go to get mentoring, coaching, workplace supervision? Is it about we're so busy delivering that we haven't got time to think about how everybody is? Is it that the people that are coming to you to work or volunteer are demanding something different and something that you can't offer? Or equally, is it something else? You don't have to vote for E. That maybe feels a bit harsh now, lack of support from the coalition. My point there is there a lack of support from the system, I guess, not just membership of the legendary coalition? It probably might not surprise you all that it's the cultural norm piece, which I think relates to James's point, but also relate it back to what you just heard me say about the coaching plan. What everyone has said is coaches are just seen as an input. but it has to be much broader than that. And we have to both just invest in their time and energy away from the act of the hour that they do the coaching, because actually the hour before and the hour after is probably the more important part of the day. Anyone in the room want to come in and comment on anything in there? Ben?
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, my two were the cultural norm around rates of pay. I think for a long time, sport and physical activity has been a sort of a nice to have, as opposed to a truly integrated part of a solution to societal need. And, you know, paying people what they deserve is part of why they stay or leave. And the second bit, which is really key, and it loops back, my second one was, it wasn't voting for the coalition, but the broader sector. I've been in, you know, professional sport for a long time, but sport development for 20 years. And I realized the long way around that it's the responsibility of our sector to demonstrate, to develop systems and demonstrate the impact of our work. We can't wait for the health sector or the local authority or anybody else within local or national government to come and dig us out. We have to do it ourselves. And our mission, my mission in Bristol, is to really be as proactive as I possibly can to try and stitch sectors together to really demonstrate the impact, so that we can not only demonstrate what we're doing from sport and physical activity. We're never going to be the answer, but we've got a really special contribution to make within a wider piece. But yeah, it's that collaboration piece, as you picked up earlier, Morts, is very challenging, to say the least. So,
anyone online? No, I've been given the heave-ho. Thanks, Atco. So just to say, thank you all for your contributions, both in the room and online. This will form part of the follow-up that the coalition will share with its membership in terms of progressing the conversation on the back of today. Great to hear from you all, and yeah, look forward to joining in the conversation as we go through, and apart from our little double act, onto a far more important set of voices. So Courtney, am I coming straight to you, or where am I going next, Atco? Oh, I'm coming to Ben. Thank you all very much.
Cool. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Morts. So the next stage is really listening to some of the people that's come through the coaching pathway to hear about their experiences, and then also from an organisation that's trying to work within the system in West of England as well. By chance or by design, my drama degree certainly didn't set me up for working in the sports development sector, but we get there in the end. So first of all, I'd like to invite Courtney and Cassia up to the chairs. Courtney is the head coach supervisor at Empire Fighting Chance, and Cassia is one of the coaches here as well. So Steve, do you want to come and join us as well, just so you can make it look pretty? Courtney, Cassia, so really interested just to hear what your pathway was into the coaching here at Empire Fighting Chance, and what were some of the positive, good bits around your pathway into here?
So I think mine sort of started when I was younger. I grew up about 10, 15 minutes away from the gym, always sort of being involved in youth clubs and things like that. And yeah, so the youth workers were sort of positive male role models on my life, and they sort of helped guide me through that pathway. I've always enjoyed sport and things like that. So, but I went into a different route. I went into sort of youth work to begin with, and come through that. But then I've always sort of loved sports. So I wanted to maybe combine the both. So I took this chance and applied to work here. I think I was the first coach that was from a non-boxing background. So in a way, Martin and Jamie took a little risk. But I think they found it easier to sort of, after a couple of months, it sort of seemed that it was easier to teach someone to hold the pads who could easily build rapport with the kids and already had that connection than it was to sort of teach a boxer to build that relationship with the young people, and enjoyed it ever since, and then got the opportunity to become coach supervisors. And yeah, some of the opportunities that I've been afforded has been amazing.
Cool. Thank you, Courtney. Cassia, what was your journey into being a coach here at Empire Fighting Chance?
For me, I got referred to my last secondary school, and then I went there, they referred me here, and I had already been through like therapy camps, and I wasn't really getting on with it. It wasn't really the thing that was for me. And at first I wasn't very open to coming down here, but then I came down, had a look around, I came down for my first session. I realized that this was what was suited to me. I've been wanting to try boxing for a while, but I didn't get into it. But when I got referred down here and got comfortable, I realized that this is the place that I wanted to be.
Cool. So how did you, we'll stay with you, Cassia. So how did you stay from being referred here to then becoming a coach? What did that look like? And what did you do to be able to advance into that role?
Well, when I first came here, like I was a completely different person than who I am now. I didn't have any confidence. I couldn't speak to anyone. I came down and obviously I went through the program. And as I went through the program, I grew and like my confidence became more. I came out of that dark place. And eventually it got to the time where I was trying to find a job. And I couldn't find something because I refused to hide the fact that I was autistic. And I found that every job interview that I went for and mentioned it, I never got the job. But then eventually I spoke to Courtney about how I wanted to start the apprenticeship and they sorted that out for me. And it turned out that this was where I needed to be after all.
Perfect. Thank you. And last one for you, Cassia, for now. What worked well in that whole system in terms of you feeling like you could engage and see yourself in a coaching role?
I think what worked for me was from the moment you step in here, it's never, oh, you're down here for therapy, you're down here for a specific reason, like you're here to be fixed. It's always been like you're just down here to like be you. You're just down here to box. Like I've never felt like I'm down here so they can fix me or make me better. It's always been helping me. It's always been about helping me manage what I need to manage to get me in the best place that I can be.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cassia. Courtney, over to you around your progression within Empire Fighting Chance. What's worked well from coming in as a youth worker to the coach to the head coach supervisor now?
I think is the opportunity to sort of put your own stamp on sessions, to get your personality across in the sessions. And as Cassia said, it's like one big massive family here. You walk through the doors and when you see the gym buzzing, and everybody's welcoming each other and everyone's given, and we've got a great team here, a great team of coaches. And that really shines through. You can see the togetherness and everything like that. And you can see the confidence that young people get sort of, and they feel welcomed here all the time. And that's what I mean is, it's just like a little family here.
Yeah. And what was put in place for you to advance through into coaching to head coaching supervisor?
So just opportunities to go on courses, training packages and things like that. And just the opportunities to sort of step up. Martin said that we'll give you that chance to step up and we want to give you that chance, Okay. And it's great to see from a local lad from 10 minutes down the road, instead of bringing someone in, able to progress from within.
Perfect. And in your opinion and yours, Cassia, what do you think could have been improved within the process in terms of your coaching and your development, or what else would you have liked to see sort of moving forward in terms of where you want to take coaching in the future?
I think always, I think to be honest here, it's been great because it started out with a small team and we've grown and those opportunities have happened. So from my sort of pathway, I think I've been well supported throughout. And yeah, really, I don't know. I couldn't say anything that needs to be improved because I've enjoyed the journey pathway so far.
Cassia, what about you?
I'd have to agree. I don't really think there's anything that I can say that I think needs to be improved here. But what I think could be improved is what everybody else could do to support us. Because what my main goal here is, I love working here and I love being here because I want to help give so many other people the chance that I got. I was so lucky to be sent here, and I think so many people they're going through so many things, so many unnecessary therapies, courses, when the support and help that they really need, they can receive from us. But the record, I think all we really need is the recognition, so people know that if they need a place to go and they need that support, we are here.
Yeah. So the credibility of the support for the development sector. Yeah. Perfect. And last question to you both. What motivates you to continue to work in this sector?
For me is absolutely seeing the young people sort of thrive as they come through the program. Seeing someone like Cass, who was my one-to-one, seeing her come through that journey of being shy and coming down to the gym for the first time and not really saying anything but hello to me, to where she is now sitting in a room full of people and people online, with the confidence to speak about our journey and what we're through, you know. So seeing the change in the young people, and because I know it sounds cliche, but they are the future. And if we invest in them, hopefully it'll be a better society going forward.
Superstar. Cassia?
For me, I think what motivates me even on like the hard days is the work that this place does do. And I think from being through the program as well, I know like this place has literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine how many other lives that it could save. And I think like even on the hard days when I don't want to get out of bed and I can't be bothered to move, like even when I'm like, oh, mum, I'm not doing it, I can't be bothered. She's like, shut up, like you're going to enjoy it. You know, you're going to go in and have a good day anyway. And she's right, because every time I come in the car, mopey as hell, I get out the car, as soon as I walk through the doors, I'm like, oh, I'm not in that mood anymore.
Cool. Thank you, Cassia. Go on. I think it's worth a round of applause. So moving on to Steve Nelson, so Chief Exec of Westport. One question which you can take away with you into the break. One of us used to play basketball. So me and Steve know the answer. We'll leave that one to you guys. But Steve, you work with many organisations and workforces within the West of England. We know that to be sustainable and to have real impact, we need those authentic local voices coming through from the communities. What's your experience been within this and also through the work of Westport?
First of all, I just want to say, you know, the reason why I think all three of us are sitting up here aren't that dissimilar, because my motivations to get involved in this sector have been the same as yours, you know, to see the difference that being active and being sporty can make to people's lives. So, you know, that's what drove me into the sector, and seeing both my colleagues in my team evolve and develop, and the support we're able to give to organisations to help them do the same. That's been my big motivation, and absolutely across Bristol and the West of England, and the way we've been working has been to try to help organisations understand the value of sport to the communities that they're already working with. So that does mean sometimes a bit of a different approach. You know, we're not going looking for sporty organisations as such. You know, we've done a lot of work with youth organisations and trying to connect them with sports organisations, or give youth workers the skills to support some coaching, or coaches some skills to support youth workers. You know, it's such a unique sector in which we're in. And there's some huge challenges, I think, that come with that around how do you know, and I think Sarah touched on it earlier, around collaboration. You know, being open to collaboration is one of the hardest things, to park your own personal individual drivers and focus on actually what are we trying to do for the audiences we're working with. How can we make sure that we've got people coming into our sector that reflect the communities in which we're working, and that's about leadership as well.
Perfect. And with the challenges, where do you think we can make some of these gains in terms of improving the pathway, but also improving the diversity of the workforce across the board?
If I'm really honest, I think this is a very difficult question to answer in a little soundbite. Sorry, it's a very difficult question to answer in a little soundbite, because it's not about a change on your job description. It's not even necessarily about a change in some of your processes. It's about leadership buying into the need to have a diverse workforce, because that diverse workforce will allow you to make better decisions and have a bigger impact. So I don't think there's no quick fix to this. It's about leaders investing time to understand issues around equality. I mean, I've spent some time over the last 18 months, 2 years, working with my colleagues in the Active Partnerships Network around race equality. And, you know, it's shown that if you do, as leaders, commit time and energy because it's important, it can tangibly make a difference to people's confidence to talk about race and to be allies. And I think it's those things that are going to tip us into an environment where actually, you know, young people from all different communities and backgrounds recognize our sector as something that they want to come into and be part of because of the welcome that they're going to get in that organization.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. So we've heard about some of the positive experiences. We've heard about some of the challenges. So now we are going to go into something called a World Cafe, which Emma Atkins is going to tell us a bit more about to discuss some of these themes and look at where we can have some collective action and collective voices. That light is really bright. Em, where are you going? Oh, yes. And just before Em comes on, a big thank you to everyone on the panel as well.
Okay, so thank you everyone for listening for that amount of time, both in the room and online. So yeah, I'm the collective action manager for at the core team, that we just pull everyone together. So I work alongside Kelly and Simon to make sure that we've got all the voices being heard across 220 member organisations across the coalition. So yeah, I'm all about action, if you know me. So we're going to get into some action now. People in the room, you're going to go next door and we're going to start asking a series of questions. The reason why we do this and where's it all going is, let me just show you the next slide. So this is our kind of way in which we pull together collective action. It's a very busy slide, I know, but there's basically a series of really good governance that goes on, different groups looking at different themes, etc. This is the start really of a conversation as to how do we want to take this forward. So looking at the top there, there's really kind of, you can't really see it that well. What we do is about advocacy, about impact, and about investment. Those are the three things that we're really trying to pull everyone together to have a look at. So this is really thinking about where do we want to go with workforce. So thank you for starting this process today. A number of coalition members have already had some conversations to help us frame some questions for you. So we're going to go into some breakouts now. It's a World Cafe, so you don't get stuck on a station. You can roam around and put your input into all four areas. So if I go to the next slide, it takes us through the fourth thing. There's actually four things. I'm the fourth thing. So if there's a question on here that doesn't mean that you're able to make a point, you come to me, yeah? So if you're online and one of these questions you're being asked actually doesn't mean that you're able to put across what you want, please just put it in the chat and we'll pick it all up. So everything you're talking about today is all being pulled together by the core team. So online, we'd like you to really focus on the capacity and readiness to deliver, and the collaboration stations, which Kate and Simon are going to set you off into two different breakout rooms. If we're in the room here physically, we're going to lead you through to the other room, and there's going to be other members of the coalition on each station asking you questions, and please just input as much as possible. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make people move from this space. So have a really good time online, and we'll be back in about half an hour to get some feedback. So thanks very much.
Yeah, brilliant.
About the National Youth Association and their survey that they collect on youth work. There was talk around sort of SIMSPA and their surveys in UK coaching as well, and the work that they do around sort of the coaching workforce. But what we need to do as a coalition is sort of categorize what we want to get out of that data, and what are the categories that we need to sort of input into the sort of already existing mechanisms that are in place. So I think sort of moving forward, that would be sort of the key bit on insight, sort of really defining the categories and how we sort of disaggregate that data.
Cool. Thank you, Kelly. Sarah, you're talking about capacity and readiness. If you can come to the front so the camera can get you, that'd be
great. So
very useful. Thank you.
Now I've got to read upside down. Not a problem. Thank you. Oh, lovely. Could you just hold it up for me? That's fabulous. Thank you so much. So we talked about capacity and readiness to deliver, and what that really means is capacity currently in the future workforce, and what we really need to put in place to enable that workforce to become the best that it can be. So in order to really have that readiness to deliver on the ground. And what we really talked about is this ability and understanding the ability to get everybody active, and that really speaking to not just the people that arrive in the room. And this was a point that James was talking about really passionately, not the fact that people are just there in the room and they want to be there, but actually how do we really understand and enable people to be ready to deliver for those that aren't active, so the inactive in our population. And then about Steve was talking about really creating a a strong, stable working environment, so that we've got that element around retention, that we keep people within our workforce, and the ability to really understand who's in front of you. So not just about delivering a really high quality experience in terms of a sporting context, but really understanding who is the person in front of you that you're working alongside and with. And this ability and the capacity to learn. So this idea of meeting people where they're at. So learning to learn. And as a previous teacher, I kind of really resonate with that, in that it's not necessarily a given. You know, you have to be taught that, really, and that element around effective deployment. And then a kind of element that James put up right at the end was that stop talking and ask, really. Stop talking about sport for development as a cost-effective solution, that we really need to invest. This takes serious amounts of time. I mean, I am really only just starting to get under the skin of that workforce conversation. And I know that Stuart has spoken previously about this being a life's work. You know, we're talking about long-term commitment, not just in terms of investment, in terms of cold hard cash, but all of us in the room, really, and online, and everybody else working within the sport for development space, having that long-term commitment and knowing that this is a long-term journey that we're on. So that's what we talked about.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Brilliantly name tagged Stuart. So Stuart, you're going to be talking around the collaboration theme, which we had quite a good few conversations, but
we did. Trying to capture it all was quite interesting. Take a picture of it, you see. Tech. So yeah, we had sort of a conversation of two parts, really. One was around the idea of being more efficient as organizations, and having the sort of the mindset of a business, but obviously with then the ethos of a social enterprise, because we had a bit of a discussion about, does having a business mindset sometimes mean we're placed in competition? And what does that do? Does that foster collaboration or not? And that linked then to a little bit around funders and their requirements, and how often funding is all towards front-loaded delivery and not to some of the back office or the capacity. So of course, when you've got stretched capacity, then being able to collaborate is also a major challenge. And so that then led to a conversation I was having around the capacity to collaborate, understanding that, you know, when the pressure's on and there's stuff to be done, it's very difficult then to have the time and space and the bandwidth and the headspace, if you like, to be able to engage with others and find shared purpose. And, you know, that does take quite a lot of energy, and it's very rarely built in to a job description, for example. So there's a lot to be thought of there. We also, there was a really nice thought or an idea around, can we do more to establish like local hubs that allow for, you know, like a natural space for people to come and explore things around their workforce development challenges. Things like recruitment, getting started, sort of getting off the ground, getting ideas from others, and maybe something that's like more formally provided locally, specifically for the sector. It's quite an interesting idea. The other thing as well was we just started to delve into, you know, collaboration itself and what it requires, and, you know, the challenges of, you know, unpicking where the overlaps are and the duplications are, which can drive us towards more efficiency, because we don't have to do something someone else is already doing better or we can learn from. But also the idea that then we can also then make more use of our resources. And I was talking, sorry, I've forgotten your name, Pete, from Gloucestershire Cricket Club, talking about, he just said, like, I can't imagine not collaborating. And then that then led me to then doing a bit of reflection around funding as well, and whether those funders who are out there could do more commissioning to collaborate. So baking it in, hardwiring it into the commissioning process, and also then the process. Because if, for example, you're always under pressure to deliver on the results, you know, do you allow the time and space for people to naturally bring together with others? You know, I don't think I've ever seen a funding bid that said, we're going to get together with a load of people and see what happens. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that would work, but it could. I will now, Steve. Is that pretty much it? So anyway, there you go. I'll stop with that.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, I think the conversation around how much we can get from our core costs towards training and delivery of our workforce is a huge challenge, especially when we have been so not pushed, but to report on our pence to pound going towards charitable activities, there is an expectation there. So there is changing the dial about how much we can put back into our core costs and our workforce. The magic of technology is going to bring in somebody, either Kate or Simon, who were looking at capacity, readiness and collaboration, I believe.
Thanks, Ben. Hi all, Kate Peckham from UK Coaching. I was in a fantastic breakout room in regards to capacity and readiness, and some really fantastic discussions happening in there. I suppose you probably came across some key themes in regards to, at times, finding in regards to readiness, that there is a disconnect between young people coming through the pathway, their learning and development, and the ability to be deployed on the front line, and the pressures of employers and deployers to have high quality there to meet the need of their business objectives. So we spoke around what do we need to do in regards to reducing that disconnect. And I think the situation which we find ourselves in with the backlog of being in a reactive times in regards to workforce off the back of the pandemic, that everyone's in a bit of catch up. So we just needing that time to take a breath and what do we need to do specifically to catch up there. So there was probably discussion around that and some ideas. And then we probably went on to looking into volunteer versus paid workforce, and particularly around the volunteer workforce, how there needs to be, well, currently lots of individuals on the call talking around this change management piece around identifying the compliance of that group. And again, to ensure that we have quality and a sustainable and retained workforce on the front line, the amount of work that needs to go into that volunteer group to ensure that they're at the levels of quality that link back to Mitch's point earlier today, and thus the investment that's required. So I think ultimately it was talking around in regards to capacity and readiness that there's an opportunity to do a real change management piece immediately to allow people to come up to this benchmark so then we can push on. And then I think lastly, sorry to keep going, was that there's a real clear appetite in regards to individuals in regards to equality. And then a suggestion from Helen was, really about how could we make sure that we have real clear messaging around equality and how can key equality partners come together as a next step to try and support the appetite of the wider workforce and ensure that they're getting recruited, deployed and retained as fairly and equally across the board.
Cool. Thank you, Kate. And we do have Simon as well, yeah. So Simon, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks very much. I'll try and keep it brief. I'm conscious we're rapidly approaching the end. I focused with our group on collaboration. First question, what do we want the shared vision for diverse sport for development workforce to look like? And really the big message here was about access to offers, support, communication, where is stuff, how can people get to it? We're a very resource poor sector. How do we communicate the systems? A great point in answer to the second question about what learning can we draw from other sectors to create this, and how should it vary at local regionals. We have great internal models already, but they're not being shared. So hopefully that's where the coalition, our collective action, can play a really important part. And the last point was about, 80% fit, so long as it does no harm. But if 80% fit and we can work at that, then that's what we should be doing across this section in collective action. I'm delighted to say we've got a lot of feedback on our Jam board, so we will be going through that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon, and thanks for everybody online for such collaborative conversations. Right, so the fourth piece, which was the car park. So I'm going to hand over to Emma to talk about the car park.
Well, nobody came to my car park because I was too busy kind of moving everyone around. But I think it was just interesting because the things I was moving around was just some amazing conversations. So please keep going with those conversations and bring them back to us so that we can be part of a wider and bigger collective action. I mean, Kelly hides a lot of the work that she does. Very humble, like Kelly is. But I just want to talk about, someone said earlier, stop talking about sport for development as cost-effective solution. So we are stop talking about it and start showing it instead. And so that's why we have that. I'm going to get it wrong again. Collect the survey tool across all of the coalition members. So please keep bringing in and showing just how much difference this sector is making, so that then we can build that into a narrative that can make a massive difference for advocacy and for investment back into this sector, because it's an absolute no-brainer. Like, we all know just how much impact it's having on things like the levelling up agenda, etc. But we just need to be able to show it with absolute confidence. So that's kind of really some of the stuff that we want to make sure that we're bringing back together. I just really wanted to wrap up by saying, please do give us some feedback on the event. This has been a real team effort. This is a coalition after all. So thank you to all of the team that have over the past few weeks been pulling this together. It's the first town hall that we've now done physically again, which is like, yeah. So thanks to Ben for hosting us back in your local area. So yeah, if we can keep doing this, if you've got any ideas as to what you would like to talk about at the next town hall, I think we're going up to Manchester next, is that right? Yes, yes. So we are moving around because this has been a fantastic way to really have some fantastic conversations. We really do want your event feedback, because you have to just go on that QR code. We'll send that out as well. If there's anything at all that kind of resonates with you on your drive back to wherever you're going, please do drop any of the team a line, and we'll be pulling all that feedback together. So thank you very much. We have got a little bit of space, a bit more coffee if you want to carry on chatting away and having those conversations. But just to say thank you to everybody and have a safe journey home. Thank you.